Okay, I think we can begin. So Colleen is going to kick us off. So over to you, Colleen.
Yes, hi everyone. First, I want to just apologize. I can't get my camera to work, so you will hear my voice. I guess it's halfway to the best thing, but you won't be able to see my picture, so my apologies for that. So on behalf of the KDE Hub team, I want to warmly welcome you to the webinar this afternoon. My name is Colleen McMillan, and I share the position of Scientific Director with my colleague, Dr. Alice Schmidt-Hambidge, who is also present today. So for the next 60 minutes, we hope to accomplish a lot. We realize that you are busy with your projects, and we really do value your time, so are committed to make this next hour a productive one for you. The key features of today's webinar are to keep you informed of new hub updates and changes. We also want to share with you some new information about our project community survey. And lastly, we want to get your ideas on our annual symposium. We're holding it virtually February the 28th to March the 1st of 2023. So again, a very warm welcome. We're excited to have you with us for the next hour. And I will now hand over the presentation to our Assistant Managing Director, Aneta Abramovich, to further walk you through the agenda we have planned.
Thanks so much, Colleen, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. So here's an overview of today's session. There will be 4 main sections to the webinar, and we'll likely breeze through a couple of these so that we can dig in more on the others. We'll start with a really brief pause on the recent announcement of additional funding to the KDE Hub. We'll then talk about priorities for Phase 2 Hub supports, which are in part informed by our team's review of Phase 2 project funding applications. After that, Renata will walk us through results from the project community survey. And then we'll spend the bulk of our time together in breakout rooms discussing the annual symposium, followed by a few quick updates from the Hub before we close out for the day. So we wanted to briefly pause on some recent Hub news. So I'll just ask Janine to advance to the next slide for this one. So that being the expansion of the project community that we support and the corresponding expansion of the Hub Secretariat. And this news has already been shared in a few ways with the MHP-IF project community, so it might not be new news to you. You can also read about it if you wish, if you want a little bit more information about it on our website. It was also part of our most recent newsletter, which was sent out a couple of weeks ago. But in brief, the investment is called Supporting the Mental Health of Those Most Affected by COVID-19, or MH-COVID for short. And it is a funding program that is also administered by the Public Health Agency of Canada. It will support more than 30 projects across Canada, and the projects are being announced on a rolling basis. So currently there's only been 2 announcements, and we're really eager to share more information about the projects. And of course, we'll be hosting that information on our website and kind of disseminating it in a variety of ways. We're just still waiting for the projects to be publicly announced before we can do that, or more of them to be publicly announced. So the investment is in some ways similar to the MHP-IF in that projects do share a focus on the mental health of Canadians, with many of them working kind of towards the upstream, areas on the mental health kind of intervention spectrum. So promotion, prevention. One of the key differences, it's a much shorter investment than the MHP-IF. So with the expanded project community, we have an expanded team, and we wanted to take this opportunity to introduce them to you. We have 6 new Hub team members, and they are pictured in this slide. Many of you have already met Katie Cook at the Theory of Change webinars. And Katie is our Evaluation and Research Manager. There are also 4 new implementation managers. We have Janine Norloos, who is in attendance today at the webinar and is actually doing the stage management for the webinar. So thanks so much, Janine. We also have Naomi Cherney, Megan Walters, and Kathy Lepp. And last but not least, Sarah Panikar is our new knowledge mobilization specialist. So each new team member brings a unique skill set and is an asset to the Hub team, and we hope also to our project community. So in terms of how this expansion will impact Hub activities and the community we serve, we will maintain a focus on mental health promotion for children and youth, while also extending our attention to the mental health of all Canadians. And, you know, we've been doing that all along as well. We certainly don't just kind of tunnel vision, but for sure, we will be giving attention to across the ages, basically. Our menu of supports will continue to be guided by our audience's needs. So this project community's needs, as well as the newly funded projects. And in terms of project-to-project knowledge exchange, we will be looking to set up opportunities for projects across these funding streams to engage with one another, as well as we'll continue to host events that are more intended for within, you know, funding program engagement. So kind of like this webinar, it's just for the MHP-IF community. We'll have those as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell, this exciting news. And, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I don't know if anybody has any questions now, feel free to ask them in chat, or if you'd like to unmute. But yeah, that's basically it for this component of the webinar. So and I'm just looking, I don't think I see any questions in chat. So if there are no questions, we'll move on to the second part of our webinar today, which is phase 2 Hub supports. And you may remember that the Hub team reviewed the descriptive portions of project funding applications in the early days of phase 1. We found this process so valuable. It helped us understand projects and to connect what we learned to our own activities. And in fact, many of the Hub supports that we rolled out in phase 1 were first informed by that initial review of applications. So because we found this process so valuable, we were really eager to repeat it for phase 2. And we wanted to take some time today to share a little bit about what we learned through the second round of reviewing funding applications, the phase 2 funding applications. So just really briefly, the purpose of the review is staying informed about project developments, of course, including your plans for phase 2. And, you know, linked to that, informing the Hub's development of our supports. And also to start to identify potential topics for cross-project new knowledge development. And in terms of our approach, our team reviewed applications, we developed written summaries, we got together to discuss, you know, what we found and to kind of have a little bit of group interpretation, and then we synthesized our learnings. So through this process, we honed in on notable project developments and goals for phase 2, areas of project expertise, and areas of potential support. So there were 5 main areas of potential phase 2 Hub supports that kind of shook out from this process. Topics pertaining to project research and evaluation were most frequently identified areas for potential Hub supports. And these included supports for specific methodologies. So for example, arts-based or creative research approaches, two-eyed seeing, or approaches to evaluation such as realist, developmental, or principles-based, as well as development or use of relevant tools such as theories of change, gender-based analysis or different ways of disaggregating data, contribution analysis or cost-benefit analysis for mental health promotion, partnership evaluation tools, and the like. So based on the Hub's understanding of their importance in the early stages of phase 2, theories of change were identified as the most time-sensitive hub support, and is why we ended up rolling out those Theory of Change webinars series this fall. Partnerships and scaling also emerged as key themes. And this perhaps isn't too surprising, given the explicit emphasis on these processes as part of the MHP-IF funding model. Successful scaling is underpinned by several preconditions, including solid vested partnerships, stakeholder buy-in, need, and readiness. And so what we're thinking is perhaps developing a suite of supports designed to strengthen those preconditions. In the process of reviewing and discussing the project proposals, it really reinforced for us that MHP-IF projects share various areas of interest, and that supporting knowledge exchange within and beyond the MHP-IF will continue to be a really high priority for phase 2. And related to this theme, the Hub team discussed communities of practice as a support in 2 ways. Firstly, as an area of interest to several projects, just in your own work, and also as a potential mechanism for the Hub to facilitate knowledge exchange between projects and others with shared interests. So finally, supports related to seeking and securing additional project funding were also discussed as potentially valuable supports. So things like help with grant writing and our continued scanning and sharing of funding opportunities. So these were our main Hub support learnings. And then in terms of new knowledge development, which we were also looking for, our review of funding applications did surface potential areas for cross-project knowledge development, including the topics that are listed here. But this is only a start, and kind of part of the reason why we won't pause here for too long. And the reason for that is that we are planning a more robust approach to priority setting for phase 2 knowledge development. We'll kick that off in the new year, and it will include collaborative decision making that will engage the project community on, as well as the FAC MHP-IF team. So at this point, I did just want to pause and just see if anything's percolated for folks about the process here, or the findings, or even related to the previous section, which we kind of breezed through quickly. So any questions or comments or thoughts, like anything that even is floating up already for you in terms of, oh yeah, I could really, our team could really benefit from a particular support, or maybe I don't see something here that you'd be interested in. So feel free, like we always say, you can unmute or share in chat. And as always, reach out to us if, sometimes it takes a bit of time to kind of, reflect. So as always, we're encouraging you to get in touch with us. You can email myself or Eric or our general KDE Hub inbox, and we'd be happy to respond and consider your input. And Magali, thank you for your comment. My first thought is that your list covers it all. Thanks for that comment, Magali. Okay, so in that case, the next part of our webinar today is to share some findings from the project community survey. So I'll hand the mic over to Renata for that section.
Thanks, Anita. So yes, we're excited to be sharing some of the results here for the PC Studies survey. So if you recall, this past summer, the KDE Hub team sent out this survey to the MHP-IF project community as a follow-up to a baseline survey that was sent back in 2020. And so we thought it would be useful to just take a little bit of time today just to review some of those results and follow up with you. I also just wanted to take the time to thank everybody for their continued participation in these surveys. It's very much appreciated and helpful for the KDE Hub team. So yeah, I just wanted to extend our appreciation for your participation as well. And so if we can move to the next slide. And so as I mentioned, this survey was in follow-up from the baseline survey that was sent, would have been about 2 years ago. And so the purpose of these surveys were to first describe and understand the experiences and benefits of the MHP-IF community over time. The second was to understand the expected benefits, and then in terms of follow-up, what project members felt that they have gained from being part of that MHP-IF project community, and then finally to explore any connections or relationships across the MHP-IF project teams. And so, as I've mentioned, the baseline survey was sent out in 2020, and the follow-up survey was sent out this past summer. It's important to note that only those projects that received funding for phase 2 were sent the follow-up survey. And so in terms of response rate, we saw a 73% response rate back in 2020 and a 94% response rate in 2022. And so the following couple of slides are going to mainly report on data just from the follow-up survey, with one exception, which I'll let you know once we get there. And so we can move to the next slide. So in terms of who participated in this survey, the project members who completed the follow-up were mostly either project leads, project managers or coordinators, and they either had roles in facilitation and implementation or evaluation and research. And then moving on to the next slide, we asked project teams in the follow-up survey, what benefits have you gained from participating in the MHP-IF project community? And so you might recall there was a long laundry list of potential benefits that we were hoping to see to just get a better understanding of. And those potential benefits were grouped under 4 different categories. So that included knowledge and skills, sense of community, activities, and outcomes. And so this slide is only going to report on the top 4 benefits as ranked by the MHP-IF project members that completed the survey. So if we advance the animation, the first category was knowledge and skills. And so the top 4 benefits that were rated by the MHP-IF project members included evaluating mental health promotion interventions, the context or environment of mental health promotion, planning for scale up, and then project communications and knowledge exchange. The second category was a sense of community, and here the top 4 benefits included learning more about the knowledge, experience, and work of other MHP-IF projects, connecting with people who have similar needs and interests, being respected and valued, and sharing your knowledge and experiences. The next category is activities. So here, the top 4 rated benefits were making connections with other MHP-IF projects, contributing to knowledge exchange to help build systemic supports for child-youth mental health promotion in Canada, accessing resources posted on the KDE Hub website, and participating in webinars and symposiums hosted by the KDE Hub. And then finally, the last category of benefits or potential benefits were under the category of outcomes. And here the top 4 ranked categories or top 4 ranked benefits were contributing to strengthening systemic supports in child-youth mental health promotion, contributing to developing new knowledge related to child-youth mental health promotion, having greater access to relevant research, and then finally expanding projects networks within the child-youth mental health promotion realm. And so that sort of summarizes at least what the top, and they were quite close in nature anyways, but these were the top 4 as ranked by the projects. And so the next slide talks about, we asked each project also about their level of connection with other MHP-IF project teams. And so you might recall this question as well, where we asked everybody to rank whether or not they either had no connection, a light connection, some connection, or a strong connection with each of the other MHP-IF projects. And so this table here just shows a bit of an anonymized sample of the data. And you'll notice here that we're actually showing both time periods. So you'll see we're showing both no connection in 2020 and what was ranked as no connection in 2022 across all of the different categories. And you'll see here that the green highlighted boxes show an increase in connection from baseline to follow-up. So if you take a little bit of a closer look at this data, as you can see that in 2020, most MHP-IF projects indicated that they either had no connection or a light connection with other project teams. And now we're happy to report that we're seeing that somewhat of a slight increase here in 2022, where we're seeing that most projects indicated either a light connection or some connection with other MHP-IF projects. So for us, this is really promising to see that we're seeing this type of slow increase in connections over time across the community. And it just sort of highlights that we definitely have room to grow and provide potential more opportunities for this to happen into the future. And so that also connects us with the next slide, where I just wanted to share some of the open-ended responses in terms of a particular question where we asked this open-ended question related to how the hub could best support projects into the future. And so one common theme coming from this question was additional opportunities to learn from and partner with other MHP-IF projects. So this next animation will show a couple of the quotations that relate to that theme. So some of the project members talked about opportunities to connect with and hear more about other MHP-IF funded project experiences, and learnings are always appreciated. I would love to understand more about what the goals are for each project to gain a better understanding of how we might align to create stronger partnerships. And then keep building connections between projects, sharing relevant knowledge and resources on mental health promotion, and crafting topics according to the MHP-IF projects. And so this final quotation also aligns with the next theme that we saw a lot in the open-ended feedback. And this is related to sharing relevant content that is specific to the project context and that type of information. So if we advance to the next animation, some quotations or some examples are more scale up and evaluation content. That was from one project member. Somebody else mentioned we're struggling a little with making Western tools more meaningful for Indigenous communities. Some guidance would be appreciated. And then finally, any information about the wider mental health promotion field beyond Canada would be appreciated. So again, it's very useful for the hub team to be able to get this type of feedback so we can better tailor our supports to meet the project needs. And as I mentioned before, it is so promising to see that we're not only seeing those incremental increases in project connections over time, but there's actually a need and a want for more opportunities to connect. So that's really exciting for us from the hub team perspective. So again, I just wanted to thank everybody for their participation in these surveys at both time points. And I will, I think, pass it back over to Annetta, I believe.
Yes, thanks so much, Renata. And yeah, thank you everybody for participating. I just think it's so neat too that, you know, it's some of the themes that we're seeing from the survey reinforce some of what the hub team picked up in our review of applications, you know, the focus on scale up, the importance of knowledge exchange between projects, you know, evaluation tools as a potential support. So for us, we kind of try to get that information anywhere we can. And so, you know, it's that homework piece that we undertake. And so, you know, in conversations with you and what we pick up at these kinds of events, but also through these kind of more formal mechanisms, is just, you know, if you're curious, in terms of how we get to where we are in terms of our supports, we're taking all of this information in and trying to nimbly turn it around into what is hopefully timely and relevant for our community. So thanks again, Renata, and thank you everybody for participating. So now we're going to move into I think the meatiest part of the webinar today, and that is annual symposium planning. So the hub has entered that exciting phase of our annual cycle focused on planning our yearly symposium. Important information to share with you at this stage includes that the symposium will take place virtually on February 28th to March 1st, 2023. Those will not be full days in order to accommodate the time zones across the country without making anybody get up too early or end their day too late. And as in previous years, it will be promoted to mental health promotion stakeholders, including those in practice, policy, and research. So the theme for this year is leveraging momentum for mental health promotion, and you should have received a short description of the theme and objectives for the symposium prior to this webinar. But in short, the inspiration for our theme this year are the various shifts that we are seeing in the mental health promotion landscape. So that includes the spotlight on mental health and on conditions of health and equity that has kind of, happened through the pandemic, particularly. We're seeing more dialogue about the impacts of climate change on mental health, and an increasing focus on actions needed for genuine truth and reconciliation. So all that being part of the mental health promotion landscape and more. And these shifts present windows of opportunities to bolster and catalyze our shared agenda of increasing mental well-being in this country. And we thought the symposium is a perfect place and time to create and inspire collective action to leverage these windows of opportunity. So we would really like to use the remaining time that we have together today to seek your input on key areas of annual symposium planning. So specifically, we'd like your input on areas of planning pertaining to the what, the who, and the how for this event. So the what being, what are your thoughts about the theme for this year? And, from what you've seen of the description and the objectives, any speakers come to mind? I know a lot of people, there's been different conferences that have been happening over the last few months. There are different webinars. Maybe you're thinking, I have a name in mind that, maybe would be a good candidate. So we would love to hear your thoughts on the what. In terms of the who would you like to see attend the symposium? And the how can we optimize project presence? And what might be ways that we can help networking between attendees? We'll have about 30 minutes in the breakout rooms, and I believe that Janine has already prepped the rooms and is almost ready to send us away. So before we go there, just want to let you know that after the discussion, we'll meet back in plenary. There won't be any formal share back this time. We'll just stay for a few closing remarks before saying goodbye. So with that, Janine will now open the breakout rooms, and you should find yourselves whooshed away to those shortly. And see you back in about half an hour.